What's up, Facebook? What's up, brothers? This is Mike, your mentor, coming to you live from my son's room for another Man Up Friday, where we go over this workbook right here. Come on, holy cow! The quest for authentic manhood. Right? Every Friday we go over a section from this, and we learn more about what it's like to be a man, right? Like how to deal with things from our past, how to move forward, how to let go of things, what our kids need from us, basically how to be a better father, how to be a better husband, how to be a better member of the community, right? And a better leader at work and wherever you go. This is not my material. This is Robert Lewis's material, but I went through this in 2008, and it dramatically changed my life, right? We were living in Chicago. We moved there after some crazy circumstances, kind of on the fly, or, my wife was from there, so she moved back. I moved there. Didn't really know anybody. Was going through a really rough time in life. Wasn't sure if I wanted to be married. I really needed some help. I needed some mentorship in my life, and so I started going to this church, and their men's group started going through this workbook and video series that goes along with it, and it just really woke me up to a lot of things that I never knew, because I had never really faced things in my past. I had never really thought about how my relationship with my absentee father affected who I was now, how my relationship with my mother growing up was affecting my life at that time, right? I had to suck it up, take a deep breath, and be willing to show some courage and look back on those things and deal with those things in order to get over them. But as soon as I was able to bring those things to the light and process through them, I started to experience a lot of great breakthroughs in my life personally and in my marriage, and just helping me be a better father and a better husband, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. There's no manual on how to be a good father. There's no manual really on how to be a good parent. And if you come from a house where these things weren't modeled for you, and you find yourself, as much as I wanted to be a good husband when I was younger and a good father, right? There's a learning curve that comes along with that, and you can make a lot of mistakes regardless of the knowledge that you do or you don't have. So this was groundbreaking for me. So that's what we do here every Friday on this channel. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I basically put this page together because, I'm 38 years old. Yeah, 38. I forget all the time. And I've been through a lot of stuff, and the differences that were made in my life, why I was able to come from the environment that I did and make something out of my life today, right? Not that I have it all together, but have a decent job, have my own family, provide for them, take care of them, teach my kids things, right? Try to be a good, productive member of society, is one, because of the grace of God on my life, but two, I also had a lot of mentors in books and a lot of mentors in person, that I was able to just glean from and watch and observe them as they interacted with their families and the people around them. And they shared their life with me, and they were real with me and vulnerable and open. And just like they planted seeds inside me, and left a piece of their legacy with me, I now want to give back and leave something in others, really, because I'm just tired of, one, what's going on outside in our world, with the lack of men stepping up, the lack of courage, the lack of honor, the lack of responsibility in the world that I see all around me. And two, people are committing suicide like crazy. I mean, left and right. All you need to do is go on Facebook, and it would blow your mind if you join one Facebook group regarding suicide, the number of inquiries that you will see each day about people that just want to take their lives because they have no hope. They think it's the end of the road. They don't know any better. right? They're at their end and they're just reaching out for a lifeline, and a lot of them are men, more so than women, and it's just sad and it just tears me up inside. So this is me doing my part to help that, because I know what it's like to be maybe not at the end of my rope, but going down there, right, and being down a deep, dark hole and needed somebody to reach their hand down and say that they love me and climb down in that hole with me, and lift me back up and help me. And I had lots of men do that, and lots of things that were sown into my life. So I'll get off that, and we're going to jump into tonight's content. First, we're going to do a little bit of review. So I encourage you, if you got a notepad, to get that along with a pen. Open up your phone, take some notes, because this stuff is simple, but it's very profound. And if you give it your attention, I promise you it'll pay huge dividends in your relationship, not only with your wife, but more importantly, the topics tonight, with your sons, if you have a son, or with your kids. Or maybe, you don't have kids yet. Even if you do, maybe in your own relationship with your father, right? Because until you are willing to look back at these things and really look at them in a different lens, and examine the way that you were brought up and the way that you were raised, you're not going to be able to make, I shouldn't say you're not, but it's very difficult to make tremendous breakthroughs in different areas of your life without being able to look back and connect the dots. I just met with somebody earlier this week, and was taking them kind of through this process and just talking to them about what their childhood was like, what their relationship with their father was, and what their relationship with their mother was. And them to actually think about it for the first time brought a lot of clarity to where they were in their life right now, and challenge them to think about that more, and to actually, I guess, just dive deeper and determine, what it is today, from their childhood, that's affecting their life. And I believe that was very profound for them. I should say, I don't believe they told me that was very profound for them. But you don't know what you don't know. So last week, we did a brief introduction. We basically talked about how in the 60s, the number of men that were in their homes, somewhere around 80%, give or take. And then now, in the 2000s, that number is less than 50%. I think it was closer to, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I want to say 43% of men live in the same household as their children. That's just sad. And it's obviously for numerous reasons. But I would beg to differ that those reasons are because men haven't accepted responsibility in the situation. They've abdicated the throne that's been given to them, right? That the position they had in their families, and for whatever reason, they decide to walk away from that. So we talked about the absent father wound, right? There's 4 wounds that every man has to look at and has to deal with in their life. And we talked about the first one, which is the absent father wound. And the definition of that is an ongoing emotional, social, or spiritual deficit ordinarily met in a healthy relationship with dad that must now be overcome by other means. And then we went and we looked back at our own life with our father, and I told a story, or my experience with my dad, and what that looked like up to a certain point in my life, and the 3 words that I would use, right, to describe my dad. And if you were with us last night, you were supposed to do this exercise, or not last night, last week, you were supposed to do this exercise and come up with 3 words that described your dad. My 3 were ghost, because he was an absent father, and the second one was show me, right, because my dad was a big talker. He hardly ever followed through on anything that he said. And the third one was manipulative. Whether he wanted to be or not, whenever he would come back in our lives, he would always try to earn our favor by buying us stuff, or giving us stuff in order to try to manipulate his way in our lives, right? instead of just apologizing for what he had done and then doing something about it and being true to his word. Um, we talked about the four results of an absent father wound. The first one was anger and pain, right? A lot of men carry tremendous anger, they carry tremendous pain. Because of that, the second one is extreme behaviors. There's addictions and obsessions, right? Pornography, drugs, alcohol, all that stuff. And then three, an inner sense of lostness or completeness, because they didn't have that connection with their father, that relationship. And then four, I don't remember what I termed this. It's something on my different on my sheet, but I think it was softness, right, and a lack of responsibility that comes from not having a father in your life. So tonight, and I'm talking kind of fast because I didn't bring my charger up here, and I got about 8% left on my battery. I want to get through this so before this goes dark. But tonight we're talking about what is it that every son wants and needs from his father, and there's four basic things, right? So the first thing is every son needs time together with his dad, right? He needs to see how you live your life, just to spend that quality time, how you interact with people, you know, what it is you do. You know, there used to be take your child to work day. I don't know if that's, we don't have it at my job, but you know, those type of experiences, right? You go to work with dad, and you get to see how he is out there in the business world. You know, you get to go on trips with your dad. You know, one of the great memories that I have, not of my dad, but of my grandpa, who sewed a lot into my life, was going up to the cabin with him. And he would just let me and my cousin loose with two hammers, and he'd tell us to get out of there and don't come back until he hollered that dinner or lunch was ready. And we'd go out in the woods and we'd chop down trees using the back of hammers and try to build forts and, you know, fight with sticks and try to, you know, mess around the pond, the frozen pond, all these crazy things that you do when you're little boys and you're just running and being free. So you need to be spending time together with your son, and hopefully you're making that a priority. You know, for father son time. Now that my son's older, you know, we like to go see a good movie, and that's how we spend our time together. And we get up to my grandpa's cabin when we can. So the second thing is life skills, right? What things are you going to teach your son so that he's prepared when he goes out into the world? You know, right now I'm teaching my son how to cook, right? Teaching him how to cook these different meals so that when he's out of the house, he has a solid foundation on what to do. You know, he's got his first car, so I've taught him some stuff with that, checking the oil, changing a tire, um, you know, adding adding coolant to the radiator, you know, those basic type of things, just so preparing him, but being intentional about it. The third thing is direction with solid why answers. Oh boy, this is going out. Not moving very fast. And we keep going. Hold on a second. See if I can do something about this. Alright, well, I'm not sure what's going on, so I'm just going to keep talking. Hopefully this picks back up and we don't run out of camera. So direction with solid answers. Why, right? I hated when I was a kid when I would ask a question and someone would say, and I'd say why, and they'd say because I said so, right? Like I wasn't being cocky, I wasn't talking back, I didn't want to mouth off or disrespect them. I was curious, I wanted to know why, and I wanted a serious answer. And two of the basic things that your son is going to need is they're going to want to know, what does it mean to be a man, right? They need to know what that looks like. Not only modeled for them, but you need to talk about that, have conversations about that. The next one is What to do in certain situations. All right, this is driving me crazy. I'm gonna run downstairs quick and get my charger. Battery's going dead. Alright, I'm back. Sorry. There we go. Look at that. All the difference in the world. Alright, so what does it mean to be a man and what to do in certain situations? And then the next thing that your son needs to see from you is he needs to see conviction through modeling. Wow, I shouldn't be out of breath, but I am. Holy cow. I didn't know I'm getting this bad out of shape. So, I talk about this all the time, but come on. You will leave in your son what you live in your home, right? Like your kids are watching you. They're watching the way that you treat your wife. They're watching the way that you treat the other siblings. They're watching the way that you treat others that come over, how you, if you respect your parents, right? The way you talk about them, the way you talk about other people, they're listening. Just think back to your own life and the conversations that you heard at the bottom of the stairs, or when mom and dad didn't think you were around, and the way they talked about people and what they said and what they modeled for you, right? Did they have integrity? Did they keep their word? Did they gossip? Those type of things. So what are you modeling for your kids, and what type of conviction? Like, I'll give you a good example. Like, growing up, my grandpa, right, he's from a different generation. His conviction was towards women is that you honored them and you did not call them the nasty four-letter word that starts with a B, that's just thrown around like crazy in today's world, right? And I remember one instance where we were getting ice cream at this ice cream place, and this guy started going off on, I don't know if it was his wife, but he was going off on this woman, and he started calling her the B word. And man, my grandpa got pissed. And my grandpa's an old army vet, right? So he gets up and he gets right in this guy's face. I mean, he's like this far from this guy's face. And he's got the guy by his collar, and he's like, "You're going to tell her sorry right now, and you'll never speak to her like that again," right? Telling this guy to apologize, right? Because my grandpa, honor was a big thing. And he was modeling for me, uh, his conviction in that, in honoring women, and then treating them in the right way. So that's an example, right? Like, what is your son going to see you model? What is your son going to see you be convicted about? What does he know? Like, what really breaks your heart? What really tears you up? What really gets you angry? What injustice out in the world makes you upset? So the next thing and the final thing, and this is probably the most important out of all these, if I had to choose, but your son needs to see dad's heart. And what does that look like? There's three things that every son needs as part of seeing dad's heart. And the first one is they need to hear, "I love you." And the streaming on this is really bad tonight. So they need to see, or they need to hear, "I love you." Are you telling your kids that you love them enough? Are you telling your son that you love them enough? Right? I know guys that have never heard those words spoken by their dads, and it breaks their heart. For whatever reason, maybe dad thought those aren't words that one man tells to another man. Why? Who said that? Who set those standards? Right? Like, you got to ask yourself those questions. If you've never heard "I love you" from your dad, or if you've never said I love you to your son or I love you to another man, I'll tell somebody I love them all the time. And maybe that's just a product of because of what I went through. And I realized that you never know when you're going to wake up in the morning and that person that you care about, right, is going to be gone. And you're not going to get to tell them you love them. And you're going to regret not being able to say that and them not knowing that. And it'll mess with your mind. So getting off topic here, sorry about the tangent. The next thing, right, a son needs to hear from their dad is, I'm proud of you. Right? How do you encourage your kids? How do you pick them up? Do your kids know why you're proud of them? Are you only proud of them when they do certain things that meet your standards? And I'll be real vulnerable with you. That's a huge gut check for me, right? I struggle with that sometimes because I have certain expectations. I guess I don't think they're high, but they're minimum expectations. But what I have to remind myself is that what those expectations for me might be minimum, but for somebody else that they might be, they might be a little higher than that. It might be a little harder for them to reach those expectations. So what expectations am I placing on those that I love, on my son, even my wife, right? Even my daughter. Yeah. So make sure your kids know that you're proud of them, and not just for the big things, but for the little things as well. And then the last thing is, every son needs to know what they're good at. And that needs to come from dad. Dad needs to acknowledge that, right? We need to know what our kids are good at, what our son is good at, and then encourage that in them so we can help cultivate, right, that gift that God's put in them, or those gifts that God has put in them, and make ways for them to be able to foster that. My dad might not have been in my life, but I had many men and many women who came along and helped cultivate and foster the gifts that were in me, that saw something in me and that encouraged me, and that gave me hope, right, and made me feel proud of who I was. It's crazy what a little word, a little I love you, or I'm proud of you, or you're good at will do. I mean, I've seen grown men break out in tears from just receiving just the tiniest little bit of encouragement or acknowledgement that they're trying and that they're doing something right. So that's it for tonight. I appreciate you guys being with me. I hope you took some good notes. This is some very important stuff, right? And if you've got a father wound, I just want to encourage you on a couple things. One, if your father is still alive and there's distance there, right? There's hurt there. There's maybe some shame about some stuff. Take a good look at it, process it, and then I want to encourage you to let that go. And one of the ways that you can let that go is to write your dad a letter. You don't even have to mail it to him. You don't even have to give it to him. If you do so not expecting anything back in return, because you're doing it for yourself. You're not doing it for them. But the reason I suggest a letter is twofold. One, you can get all of your feelings out without being interrupted, like if you were in a conversation, right, and you're trying to get something out. People can become defensive. They can deflect. When you write a letter, there's none of that. And it's very cathartic, right? It takes that pressure, that internal pressure that's been there, this root that's been inside of you that you've denied and you've pushed down for all these years, can now be torn out. And now something else can take that place. Love, happiness, fulfillment, completeness, right? By you ripping that root out. It's not easy, man. And you want to know what? You can write your dad a letter whether he's alive or he's dead. I remember doing this exercise and my dad was dead. And just writing him a letter. about how I felt about all the things that I never got to tell him. Man, and it was rough. It was real rough. A lot of tears, a lot of snot. But I'll tell you what, one of the most freeing things I've ever done in my entire life. So if that's you and you've got a father wound, I want to encourage you to do something about it. And it can start by writing a letter. If you're feeling a bit more courageous, I want to encourage you to go to your dad and have a conversation with him. Take him out for something to eat and just talk to him. I don't know how the conversation will go. I don't know if he'll make excuses. I don't know if he'll acknowledge what you have to say to him. But I promise you this, regardless of which way that it goes, he might even surprise you and tell you that he's proud of you and that he loves you. Right? He may be carrying a lot of shame about some stuff that he did when you were a kid to you that he's never known how to deal with because no one ever showed him the appropriate way how to deal with that, and he's been carrying it all these years. And by you coming to him in a loving and honoring way and sharing these things with him might just be the thing he needs to help unlock that and uproot that out of his own life. And it'll be very freeing for both of your relationships. So I want to encourage you, right? Take one of those two paths, a letter or go talk to him. You got it in you. I know you do. And I believe in you. I don't even need to know you. Because I trust God. And if God puts that in your heart to go to your dad, he'll honor that. Because one of the commandments in the Bible is honor your mother and father. And that's one of the ways that we can honor them. So yeah, I guess that's it for tonight. Tomorrow, shout out Saturday, right, where I like to acknowledge somebody that's played a pivotal role in my life in some way, that's planted a seed inside of me. This tends to be the number one wound that men suffer from. So if I could get a little bit of extra love on, tonight's video along with last week's video in terms of you guys liking it and sharing it, I would greatly appreciate it. I've seen more men have breakthroughs by acknowledging this wound in their life and then choosing to do something about it than any of the other three wounds that we're going to deal with. You may be like me, you may have more than one wound, right? And they all play a difference in your life to some varying degree. But this tends to be the most common and the hardest one for men to deal with out of the four wounds that every man has to deal with. So I really appreciate that you guys keep coming back and watching these videos. I hope you're really getting something out of it. And I just want to encourage you, right? Like, you just heard this stuff. You know of it. But none of that matters if you don't take what you now know and do something with it. Please don't be that guy. I just want to see you be free as possible, to live the best life that you can, and to answer your higher calling as a man, in your family, at your place of work, in your fatherhood, in your community. So I love you, brother. Do something about it. Make a choice. And I appreciate you guys being with me tonight. See you tomorrow. Have a good night.